Hello everybody, my name is Illia Nyzhnyk. I am a Grandmaster from Ukraine and I'm going to be showing you guys today some stuff I find fascinating. The topic for my tonight's lecture is dynamic sacrifices for a long-term advantage. So it's a slightly more advanced topic, I would say, because I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have active pieces, right? When your pieces are active, you can just do so much more with your position, right? And sometimes, I would even say more often than not, it is worth it to sacrifice something you may not need in the long run just to have your pieces active and as useful as they can be. So, for example, in this game between two very strong grandmasters, Mishra, Abhimanyu, and Titas Stremavicius, the issue right now is clear, right? The issue is that Black's rook is under attack. The bishop is the one attacking the rook, and Black needs to do something about it. There's only two real options here, right? Can you guys tell me what are the two real options Black has? What can Black do to save the rook? Well, the second option is not really a real option, quote unquote, because it still loses material. So what do you guys think? Yeah, so today is actually my last official day of being Grandmaster in residence, but I'll be around for the next week. Yeah, correct. So rook a5, the rook moves away, bishop takes c6. Using the fact that the pawn is pinned, this just wins the piece, right? So that's the bad second option that saves the rook but loses the knight. There is also another bad option, which is to capture the pawn using the queen. Yeah, so rook a5, people are pointing out rook a5 is losing, and that's correct. So rook a5 is a false path, right? Now queen takes b6 would be less bad, but still Black would find themselves without an exchange, right? Now White can follow through with moves like rook d5, inflicting double attack here, and nobody really wants to be playing down material, especially when you have nothing to show for it. So yes, the correct move here, the only correct way, is to take on b6 with the rook. And here is the critical moment of the game where Mishra Abhimanyu went too easy on his opponent. So the move Abhimanyu has played is bishop captures c6. By the way, I should probably point out that at this point, White is down a pawn, right? White is down a pawn, and in my mind, bishop captures c6 was a clear attempt to win the pawn back, and that's kind of what happened. So the game continued as follows: Black obviously recaptured with a rook, White captured their missing pawn on e5, and after the next few couple of moves, the position got really simplified. So just to fast forward through the next couple of moves, at this point, Titas Stremavicius has made a very, very nice practical decision, because if you guys can see, currently two of Black's pieces are under attack, and Black cannot save both. Black has to choose between saving the pawn on d5 and saving the rook, and actually Titas made an amazing practical decision to give up the rook, and he transposed into the following, almost an endgame, right? We have quite a few heavy pieces still on the board, but the thing is that the a2 pawn and the b4 pawn are likely to get traded just like what happened in the game, and here we have this position that's extremely difficult for White to win. Yes, White is up material because White has a rook and Black has a bishop and a pawn for it, but in reality, Black has no weaknesses, and if White keeps trading pieces, then eventually White king is not great. Yes, that's correct, Eugene. Unfortunately, Black does not really have any way to use that, right? So the king is on h1. It is somewhat exposed on this diagonal, right? But really nothing Black can do about it. And obviously Black being down material would be more than content with a draw, and that's what happens over here. Abhimanyu allowed the queen trade, transpose into the endgame, and the endgame appeared to be drawn. Unfortunately, white cannot make progress even though they're up an exchange, because black just has this kind of sort of a fortress. Why can I not? Oh, because I have to choose the next move, right? So let's say black goes rook c8, and black, I think black eventually went g6, king to g7, and just stood there and did nothing. And because black had no weaknesses and white is lacking pieces to attack black's position, that's why the game ended in a draw very quickly. So this kind of tells us that maybe, just maybe, in the very beginning, not enough pawns, yeah, pretty much, not enough pawns, and even if all the pawns get traded off, then the rook versus a bishop endgame is a theoretical draw. So this actually tells us maybe in the very beginning, at this point where white ended up losing a pawn, maybe at this point white could have just played on without oversimplifying, right? So whenever you go for trades, you're simplifying the position and you're going further into the close to or into the endgame, right? Oftentimes, I mean, obviously it all depends. It all depends on what you are expecting from your position, but oftentimes trading pieces favors the side that's defending, right? So over here, if you just compare every single piece in our position to every single piece in black's position, we will see clearly that black has no attacking pieces, right? None of black pieces are doing anything other than defending, right? Rook is the defender, knight is a defender, bishop is a defender, queen also defending, rook and f8 does nothing, right? Our pieces, on the other hand, most of them, right? Most of our pieces are purely attacking pieces, right? When we look at this position this way, we can clearly see that our pieces are doing a better job. I mean, they are in command. Whenever you have an attacking piece versus a defending piece, an attacking piece dictates what's happening, right? Because a defending piece is forced to maintain its position to defend something. Attacking piece is not forced to maintain its position to keep attacking. It can move away, it can do whatever else it wants, right? That's always very nice whenever you can choose what you want to do. And here, yes, that's correct. By the way, you guys can probably already tell. Okay, I've drawn all these arrows, and it's kind of becoming clear what is it that white is trying to, or what is it that white is missing here, right? Because as we noticed, most of white's pieces are amazing, most but not all. Which piece in white's position is not doing much? Anybody here? Which piece in white's position is not? Yes, that is correct. This rook on a1, it is the only piece that's not attacking. So what do you guys think the strongest move in this position would be? People in the chat already got it. Yep, pretty much everyone. Good job. Yeah, rook c1. Exactly. Bringing in the very last piece into the attack. And actually, this move is surprisingly difficult for black to deal with, because I think the most obvious response here for black would be a move such as bishop b7, right? Because if black is not going to defend the bishop in c6, they'll lose it, right? So just to demonstrate, because the d7 pawn is still pinned, this would cost black a piece. Well, in this case, a rook. That's awful, right? So to not let this happen, black either needs to get an additional defender for the knight on c6, or move the queen away from the pin, right? So this queen is kind of under the pin, under the rook's pin, and maybe we can find somewhere to move it to. What do you guys think? Can the queen move anywhere to the right? Let's say e7, right? Because the queen was also a defender. It was defending the b6 rook, so moving it to the right would cost black a rook again. What about queen to c7? Queen to c7 changes issue, or not changes, but the queen to c7 move solves this issue, but gets a new one, right? Correct, yeah. Knight takes e5, overloading the queen, right? Because the queen is still defending the rook, so knight takes e5 works amazingly, because now if black captures on e5, it takes the rook. If knight captures on e5, once again, this issue of queen being pinned is still there. So that's going to cost black the queen. And here we are still maintaining, all of our pieces are still attacking, and we won our pawn back, right? So this is amazing, unlike the previous case where white traded off too many of their attacking pieces, just, you know, in an attempt to win their pawn back. So here, I would say bishop to b7 is probably one of the best moves black can do. But this creates a new issue for black, because the bishop in c8 was also kind of a defender of the d7 pawn, right? So now black is getting a new issue that they cannot really solve that easily. What is that issue, and what is white's next move going to be? Okay, take us on e5. I think this time it's just going to lose a piece because there is no pin going on in the c file, right? So black can just capture the knight. But you have a correct idea, right? We're trying to see if we can win our pawn back, because I think one of the pieces right now might be overloaded, right? The piece that's overloaded is the piece that's doing a lot of the jobs at the same time, and it cannot do all of those jobs well. Okay, people in the chat already got it. I see the right answer. Bishop takes c6 would kind of do the same thing as in the game, but here I think black can even trade up another pair of rooks, right? Because now if you want to win your, I mean, you can take on e5 immediately, but this leads to a rook trade, and actually after d5, black is going to trade even more stuff. And this is kind of what we're trying to avoid, right? Because our pieces are so much better than black's pieces. We don't want to trade them off the board. So yeah, bishop takes c6 is definitely a move, but it is not objectively the best move that we have here. Bishop b3. Okay, so you are transferring the bishop onto this diagonal, trying to apply pressure against the f7 pawn. I would say it's definitely it is definitely an idea that's worth considering, but we have something stronger, right? We have something immediate, something stronger. Something is gonna, okay, everyone in the chat got it by now. Yes, right? Because the queen is now overloaded. As I mentioned, oops, drawing is hard. So the bishop was doing this job. Now the queen has to be doing this job. Actually, it has to be doing two jobs. Cannot do both of them well. So we win our pawn back, and look at what's happening to black's. Not that. This is what's happening. This mouse and I are not friends. I'm sorry.
We have another.
Oh my God! What is going on? It just keeps doing that. I apologize. Never mind. We're good. Okay, so this is what's happening. The black knight is now getting pinned. White has just won their pawn back, and black is gonna be in a big trouble very soon, right? Knight is pinned. Knight e5 is coming. The knight is not just pinned. It's actually in big trouble as well, because we have three attackers, right, against black's two defenders. So I guess the next move is going to be rook c8. But you see how pinned black pieces are. Like, I think if we are to try and find a good move for black right now, we wouldn't succeed, right? And all this is because we didn't rush, right? So we identified that our pieces are just so much better than our opponents that we don't have to rush to win back our material. We can do it any time. But waiting and improving the very final piece, which was the rook and a1, right? Waiting one move, improving this piece is actually going to allow us to win our pawn back and more, right? Because here, I think at this point, black physically has no better move other than bishop to b7. This knight cannot move as it's defending the e5. We already determined that the queen cannot move. The rook cannot move as well because white is threatening to capture the knight. So black's position is pretty much doomed. Yeah, so this is my first example. It's rather simple and straightforward, but it just shows you guys how important it is to identify the possibility of having an immense piece activity. And more often than not, pieces that are this active is just going to be a great long-term investment, because you're going to get more than what you've put up for piece activity. Let's move on and take a look at this game now. This game is from the same event. The usual suspect, Mishra Abhimanyu, was playing as black here, and he was, unfortunately, this time he was in a loser's seat, playing against Grandmaster Marandi Cemil, who also goes by JJ. So in this position, Mishra had a rather difficult choice. What to do? Black is up a pawn, yet again. We're continuing the topic of one side being up a pawn. But here, the issue is slightly different than before. Black does not really have any, or not any, black doesn't really have that many weaknesses. And white doesn't really have that many ways to utilize their space advantage, because clearly white has a superior center, right? Both pawns are in the center. They are allowing white to control a couple of important squares. But there isn't much white can do with it right now. Well, the black bishop is taking care of it. So black also has an issue that's oftentimes not an issue at all. So the king is in the center, but because the pawn structure is so locked up, right, there isn't much white can do to this king. At the same time, black does not really want to hide the king anywhere. Black, well, physically cannot go short castle. Why? Short castle was a blunder. Where? Knight over here? Well, I'm afraid black just has way too many defenders, so this is likely to be an unfavorable trade for white, right? So this will happen, and white ends up losing another pawn. Yeah, so I see the answers in the chat. Something is unprotected now, something that white can capture for free. H6 pawn, correct. Just bishop captures h6, forces the rook away, and, well, since white captured their missing pawn back, now they don't have to worry about having to prove that they have a superior piece activity, which they still do. I believe that white can just follow through with an attack, well, maybe not immediately, because their own d4 pawn is hanging. So I feel like what white could have done here would be a move like rook d1, taking care of their weak d4 pawn, and then follow it up with h4, h5 breaks through against the black king. The king is not safe at all if it castles short, right? Even if notice that even if white did not win the pawn on h6, even if white just played h4, h5, that's really concerning for the black king, right? Black would have to play something like g5 or h5, move the kingside pawns further up, and that would jeopardize the king's safety. So black doesn't really want to castle short at any point. Castling long would also be questionable, right? Because there is an open file. There is an A open file where white already has a rook. There's also going to be a semi-open C file where white can bring their second rook, and that's a point of concern for black, right? They don't really want to be under the X-ray of both of white rooks. So this is definitely better. This castle does not lose any material, but it's still questionable whether black would be feeling safe after castling their king-queen side. However, if the king remains in the middle, well, the only thing black really needs to be concerned about is one of these checks, right? That's the only direct way for white to attack the black king, but both of them are not really doing much. We already determined that knight to f6 loses white a pawn, knight to d6 would force a trade, right? Black can trade their black bishop for the white knight, and then, and then the pawn would, let's make a random move to discover what would happen had white played knight d6. So we would see this trade happening, and now the d6 pawn is kind of loose, right? So d6 pawn may become an easy target. So the easiest way I see for black to capture the d6 pawn would be to play knight f6, attack. Wait, first of all, I'm a little bit blind. What am I missing here? I'm missing a very simple move, right? That black can make, like a really simple one. There's something that's hanging in one and I'm not seeing it. Yeah, exactly. Just knight is hanging on c3. I'm not sure what happened to me. But yeah, so here, if white does not want to lose their piece, they have to capture in d5 first and then capture in d6, which loses them a pawn. By the way, I'm not going to jump the train, but I'm going to say that this position actually, or position very close to this one, did happen in the game, and I'll explain why. So this idea of knight d6 is going to be the key idea for white to break through black's central pawn structure. So let's actually take a look at what happened in the game here. Black went a5, and now actually knight d6 would be the transposition to the position that happened in the game. But I believe, yes, white took on d5 first. And over here, we already know knight f6 is not doing much, right? It gives up the pawn. By the way, knight d6 that was played in the game also gives up the pawn, but it does something that knight f6 doesn't do. So knight d6 forces black to trade their bishop off. It forces this trade. Otherwise, the king has to move somewhere. I'm not sure there is a safe place for the king to go to. If it goes to f8, which is the only move I see that black can make, this move immediately loses, right? Knight f7 with a double attack. So king f8 doesn't seem very safe for the king, right? If it can get to g7, that's the usual king placement when you're making a castle by hand. So if you're forced to move your king, and it's not a castle, you call it a castle by hand. If it takes quite a few extra moves than the normal castle, but eventually the king is looking to get to g7 or h7. Not only is it a massive time waste, but also, as we mentioned before, king is not very safe on the king side anyway. So any other move that white makes does not force black to trade their dark squared bishop, right? So after knight d6, black took on d6, e takes d6, and queen takes d6, right? So here is why we're looking at another sacrifice, right? We're looking at the sacrifice of a second pawn, which generally is a very I don't want to say the word unsafe thing to do, but if you're sacrificing as much material as two pawns, oftentimes you have to be extremely quick about your attack, because anything that's above one pawn, anything that you sacrifice that's above one pawn, gives your opponent an immense possibility to give it back, to give one of the pawns back, to reorganize their pieces, and then if they succeed, they'll still have another pawn as an extra pawn, and that's a big advantage. So over here, white has to be as fast with their attack as possible. So every single move that white would make, as you guys will see momentarily, is going to be applying some kind of pressure onto the black's position. So bishop f4 is obvious. What is rating range for this class? Rating range for this class, I would say probably 1500 to 2000, maybe 1500 to 2100. So it's wide. There's quite a few tactics here and quite a few things to understand. So that's how I would rate this class. Okay, I missed quite a few chat messages. I apologize. I'm trying to catch up. Close centrist favors the knights. Better exchange bishops with oh, okay. So you're saying that this trade is not good because white gets a bishop pair and bishops are not great in close pawn structures. That's correct, by the way. That's a good point. But here you see in chess, just like in many other fields in life, the answer to certain questions is it depends on other factors. So here we have a couple of other factors that influence the generic rule about not trading knights in closed pawn structures, because here we can make an immediate use of our dark squared bishop, and this is kind of why we're going for this trade. So black over here, black played queen b4. And once again, if white is not gonna attack immediately, black has a rather simple way of reorganizing their pieces. At this point, the only bad thing about, well, not the only bad thing about black's position, but one of the bad things about black's position is that their rooks are not connected. And as we know, black cannot castle, so I believe that the black's next move is going to be which move to connect the rooks. Using the fact that the pawn structure is still closed in the center, black is probably not afraid to keep the king in the center, right? Black doesn't want to castle, but black would definitely like to connect the rooks. Yes, is the correct answer. Black bishop on b7 is another problem that's going to cost black the game, probably. I would say that because of this bishop, black, or partly because of this bishop, black ended up losing. But yeah, which is the move that connects the rooks without castling? Yeah, king e7. I think that's what black is trying to do, because the king, the only way for white to attack the king would be queen h4, but then there's g5, right? It blocks the attack and actually wins the piece. This is why I think king e7 to connect the rooks, maybe brings them in. That would be black's idea. So white cannot wait. White plays rook a to c1. Now if king e7 happens, I believe white has rook to c7, and this, you know, attacking the bishop on b7 and pinning the d7 knight looks rather scary. Did this happen, I wonder? I think that this might have happened. What happened in the game? No, in the game black played g5. Okay, so I guess black just wants to discourage white from playing rook c7, and that's why they go g5, forcing the black bishop to make a choice, right? Now the bishop has to move somewhere. Well, there's only two places, right? The e3 and c7. As we already know, the c7 is kind of reserved for our rook, right? So I wouldn't go to c7, which leaves the e3. And now black went king to e7. And here white did not play rook c7, right? On the contrary of what I've been saying all this time, rook c7 did not happen. Why? King d6. Whoa, king d6. Hold up. Rook c8. Okay, wait. Okay, so what have you guys planned against rook takes b7? Are you guys trying to catch the rook? Something? Yeah, Eugene, you're correct. Yeah, that's literally what happened. But yeah, now Eugene gave an answer from a different perspective. So he didn't give an answer of what black can do to make rook c7 ineffective, but he gave an answer of what white should have done instead of rook c7, and why rook c7 is not effective as what white could have done. So yeah, I think the problem here is that black can just defend the b7 bishop, and then their next move is going to be rook c8, trading off one pair of rooks. When our bishop is on f4, black would definitely be very uncomfortable having the rook on b8, right? Because it's going to be under the x-ray of the bishop. As soon as the rook moves away from c7, bishop on f4 would be attacking the rook, and that's why black decided to include the move g5. However, the move g5 creates an additional possibility for white. Now, you see, this is kind of what I mean. Because black is feeling uncomfortable, they feel the need to untangle and connect their pieces, right? And in their attempt to do that, black is giving away more and more, not advantage, but they're giving away, they're making their position weaker, right? So the moves such as g5 look very logical, right? It's just an attacking move that forces the bishop away, but in reality the g5 becomes a hook for white pieces, right? Now white can use the pawn on g5 to fuel up their attack, right? So what do you guys think would be a move to use this g5 hook and help our attack? So Eugene already got it. Well, h4, yes, correct. So people were saying f4 as well in the chat. I believe that f4 is probably not going to be as effective, because f4 literally kills our dark squared bishop, right? So h4 still maintains some possibilities for our bishop, while f4, I think, is a very, very easy way for black to just like destroy the bishop. Just go f5 and go g4, and this bishop is not going anywhere anytime soon, right? It's locked by our own pawns. So after h4, black still can play f5, right? But f5 is no longer as effective. After f5, our bishop is still attacking the g5. By the way, here I believe we might be having some tactics, such as bishop takes g5, queen takes g5, and I feel like black might just be losing here because of how weak their king has become. There's rook c7 that's coming up, right? If king d6, actually king f7 seems to be the best move according to the computer, but I'm not sure if this is holdable for black, because white is gonna join their bishop soon, and this doesn't seem very safe for the king. On the other hand, white probably does not have to do this. White could have probably just played queen h5 or any other queen move, and apologize. And now, if black captures on h4, we already know that this creates additional weakness for black to worry about. Now their king can be attacked from the right side, and that's, once again, I guess there is no real defense, right? If king f7, once again, the same plan is gonna come through, and the king will just keep getting attacked. Yeah, so here black played f6. Black is trying to maintain the close pawn formation, right? If white captures on g5 now, black would capture back with an h pawn and maintain the pawn shield, right? So black's keep misclicking. Black's task here is to survive, right? As long as they survive, as long as their king does not get checkmated, they probably will win because they're up 2 pawns. That's a commanding material advantage. So over here, white played another attacking move that forces black to think about how to defend, and that move is bishop to h3. Once again, f5 is there. I think f5 was the move that was played. Yeah, f5 was played. Question: Why would a move such as queen to d6 not work? Because it's accomplishing the task, right? The current black's task is to defend the e6. But for some reason, black did not play queen d6. Queen d6 seems a bit more logical because it maintains the same pawn formation, right? And now, right, that's the goal. The goal is to make sure the king is as safe as possible, and definitely not pushing any more pawns near the king would do a good job for black. But for some reason, this wasn't played. Why?
You still play rook c7?
Rook c7, so you're using the fact that the queen is overloaded. I'm not sure how effective this is going to be. Okay, so I see the answer in the chat. Yeah, I can probably play, both king f8 and king d8. Losing a rook is unless you're checkmating here now, it's probably not gonna work in the long run, right? Because there's just way too many ways for black to defend. If you don't attack right now, black will eventually get more pieces near the king and defend. Yeah, losing the rook is probably too much. Any other suggestions? Valterega got it. Khan got it. So we're dealing with tactics now. It's a tactics check. H takes g5 was suggested. The only reason for why we would like to take on g5 is if we maybe take here. But in my mind, I think taking on g5 is almost never worth it because we're helping black, right? We're opening the h file for the black rook, and unless we can punish black immediately here, they will eventually be able to use this open file. So once again, unless there is nothing immediate, I think taking is a bad idea, but maybe this works. I'm not sure if this works at all. Doesn't seem like it is. Okay, do you guys see? Do you guys want to give it another shot? Over here. People are saying rook to e1 in the chat, which actually makes a lot of sense. I actually like the move rook e1 too, but I think we have an immediate solution, which is bishop to f4. Okay, bishop to f4 uses the fact that black cannot take. If black captures, we have queen g7, and now we're forcing the black king back to the last rank. You guys can probably tell what it's going to lead to. It's going to lead to us winning the rook, and there we're going to be even in material, right? At this point, we're even in material, but we have a rook for a light piece and 2 pawns, one of which we're probably going to win back momentarily. But our attack still goes on, right? Our attack hasn't died down. We still have a whole plethora of different ways to apply pressure against the black king. Does rook f to e1 work? I'm pretty sure it should. Yeah, I think rook f to e1 is a good move also, because now I think we are amplifying this threat of bishop f4. And what I mean by that is because, well, let's say black makes a random move here. Actually, there's no good rook move black at this point. So I think that the reason for why now we're amplifying the threat is because after bishop f4 we do have rook e6. Oh, rook e1 after bishop f4. Okay, let's check it out. Rook e1. Well, probably works. Honestly, I think it works. I don't really see a defense for black here. I saw king d8, but honestly, this looks like black is gonna. Oh my god, there's the move rook a6 here. Oh, that's so cool. There's actually rook a6. Black has f5. Yeah, so they're making it unclear, right? So they're making it unclear, and I would just go for a free rook after bishop f4. Did I play in US Masters 2021? No. Last time I played in US Masters was in 2017 or 18. I don't do well there, so I stopped playing there, fortunately. e5 is a defense, yeah, but you see, if black plays e5, we can still win the rook. So my only goal with this tactic was to win the rook. And if I make a move, let's just rook e1 here, it may or may not work, right? I know that winning the rook will work for sure. Like, I know I'm winning after winning the rook. So I would much rather just do that than have to calculate a line that doesn't give me a clear, winning advantage. So, okay, over here black played f5, and after queen h5, the g5 pawn is still under attack, right? Black went rook g8. Now you see, black is wasting a bit too many resources to protect the king, because the king is now getting attacked from the right side, right? Or is about to get attacked from the right side, and white is going to use this fact very, very efficiently. So white plays rook c7 now, bishop c8, and just simply rook c1. So all of the black pieces are tied down now. I think the logical thing to do here would be to play g4, and that's what black did. Playing g4 kind of traps the white queen, but it unfortunately does not matter anymore. After bishop captures h6, if black takes this bishop now, how does white win? What is white's next move that basically wins the game? Bishop g5, correct. That's a check. King does not really have anywhere to go. If it goes to f8, white is going to pick up the bishop on c8. If it goes to d6, white has a checkmate in one, rook c6. So the only way to survive a bit longer is to take here. White would take, and wait, no, white would actually, whoa, okay, I almost fell into it. Which rook do you think white should take here? The rook on g5 or the rook on h8? h8? Okay, why not g5? Okay, that's a good point. So if you take on h8, so you're just going to be keep maintaining the double attack, right? But the line in question here was this, right? Because this is, once again, this is also a big material advantage. But there is something black can do. Yeah, so take on c8 and queen e1. Yeah, this is what I've missed. And now there is a perpetual check, because there is nothing on the first rank to stop the queen from checking us. Yeah, so this is why we have to take on h8, which probably wins easier overall. It probably wins more material this way. Yeah, so black was forced to make the move queen d2, which leads to this endgame. In this endgame, black is currently up one pawn, but if you notice, their bishop is under attack, and both b5 and a5 pawns are under attack. I believe black lost this game within the next couple of moves, because what happened was white picked up both pawns on a5 and b5 with their bishop, and then white began pushing their b4 pawn, and there was nothing black could have done to stop white from promoting, and therefore they just resigned, because they have no attacking pieces. All of their pieces are still defending, and they actually, after losing both b5 and a5, they're down material, right? They're down a pawn, and they really have no hope other than hoping that black will, or other than hoping that white will screw up, but that didn't happen. So once again, long-term advantage. This time it was we were missing 2 pawns instead of 1. Now on to the last game. Do you guys have any questions? Sorry if I'm moving too fast. You guys can always stop me or pause me and ask me to explain myself or to elaborate. Oh, so the opening, I believe, was looks like Slav defense, where white sacrificed a pawn, right? So black took on c4 and Slav defense, and white played b3, captures. This is a game between Ali Marandi, Cemil and Mishra Abhimanyu from 2022 Spring Classic, Section B. So it was played earlier this year in March, I believe. I was playing in Section A at that time. So yeah. These positions are very tricky. The engine likes these positions for black because it believes that the pawn is a good enough advantage to survive in case you start getting attacked. But practically speaking, I would say it's easier to play with white because the plans are clearly defined, and black will always be under the attack, under the pressure of having to defend properly. Is it Catalan? It might have been Catalan, yeah, or might have been Slav. I think well, if I were to guess, I don't really know. I don't have a full game here, but the plan for white here was to open up the position, and white accomplished this, right? So black played a5 now, and white accomplished their plan by trading the knight on d5 and then giving up another pawn. This was a position-specific idea because, in general, as somebody in the chat pointed out, usually you want to keep the knights when the position is closed. When the pawn structure is closed, you want to keep the knights because they have easier time maneuvering around the pawns. But in here, white kept both bishops just for the sole purpose of using the bishop on f4 to infiltrate on the c file.
So with rook to c1, before the knight takes on d5, b5.
Let's see. Okay, so rook to c1.
That.
Okay, yeah, it probably would be. I think it would be because black doesn't really have much to do. I think maybe black would have played a4 here and created some kind of passed pawn. So now we would have the same thing, but black actually does have some counterplay, right? Because they have a passed pawn that white cannot really ignore. So maybe this is why white was in a hurry to do the sacrifice. That's my guess. Okay, any other questions? If not, huh? Yeah, correct. Yeah, so use the bishop to help the rook infiltrate on the c7. Can black play queen b6? Because black played queen b4, I believe. Yeah. Rook c1, right. Oh, just rook c8. Okay, let's see. I would probably just takes and goes back. Yeah. And then yeah, bishop b7, then we're gonna go rook c7, and bishop a6, we can go rook c6, and we're just gonna make the bishop's living hell, if not win it. I think we might win it here, no? I'm not even sure how black can defend. Yeah. So yeah, this is probably why black was immediately trying to connect the rooks to make sure this doesn't happen, and they played king e7.
Black is up 2 pawns, so this is quite significant that white is getting something with it.
Correct, exactly. Yes, this is essential. If white didn't play this aggressively, they would have lost the game. They're obliged to play this way.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, let me close this. Any other questions? Okay, I guess let's move on. Arrows. I like drawing arrows, but I'm not very good at it. So, this game is from my section. Same event, but section A. Grandmaster Dragun Kamil versus Grandmaster Robson, my good friend who lives nearby. And in the game, white made an inaccuracy, or I would probably say it was more than an accuracy, because white put too much hope into their own attack on the queen side, right? So in this case, they have a pretty unbalanced pawn structure, right? White has nice pawns in c4 and d4, and white also has a pretty nice battery going on this diagonal, which kind of tells us about the possibility of what the best move here might be for white. What do you guys think? Yeah, okay, Ariane already got it. The best move here for white is more of a rhetorical question. After I gave you guys all these hints, best move is d5, and even though it's probably gonna cost white the pawn, in the long run they are gonna win their pawn back. It is very, very difficult. Oh, and then c5 was c5. That's over here, instead of taking, you wanna play c5 now, huh? Okay, well, you have given up 2 pawns. You're gonna win one of them back, but in the process we are trading a white piece, right? I'm not sure if white has enough. White only has 2 pieces attacking. White has a rook and the queen attacking, but black, look at how many pieces black has near the king. I think this is probably not gonna work for white. The knight cannot join, the bishop cannot join, right? So it's probably gonna be close. I mean, okay, white can just capture the pawn on f5, but then black has a counterattack of their own. So, and then knight joins via f4. Okay, so maybe here I might be messing up. Maybe just knight e7 then. Is knight e7 working? Knight e7. Let's see. There was a solution here. Like I've checked this move, but there was a way for black to defend against all that. Maybe just not take the pawn on c5. No, but I probably should. How do I defend? Knight e7. Yeah, knight e7 doesn't work because there's bishop b5, and now the rook on e8 is overloaded. Let's see. Maybe I can just make a draw. I don't know I'm not sure if I want to draw if I'm black. Maybe I can just force you to trade a rook, and it's gonna be fine because you can never checkmate me if we have no rooks. Yeah, rook e7. Yeah, that's my guess. We can cheat and as the engine, but there should be a way for white to for black to defend themselves here. But yeah, if white just takes on d5, actually, it's probably gonna be as good, if not better. We're gonna get kind of the same position, but without the pawn on d5 for black. Now, you know, we don't have to worry about that black pawn ever promoting. But obviously, the question is not what white should have done here. I mean, I guess it is a question as well, but we're actually going to be looking at this position from black perspective now. So white played the move queen b6, I guess attempting to play d5, right? Now if white plays d5, this pawn is pinned, and it's gonna be a better version of what we've been trying to do in the beginning. As we notice here, white has moved a significant portion of their pieces over to queen side, right? So white has 3 pieces on the queen side, black only has 1. But at the same time, black has a nice concentration of pieces on the king side, which may give us some idea about a potential attack, right? So we have pieces on the king side, we have good connected pawns in the middle. This should call for action. What do you guys think black did here to initiate the attack?
Just taking all the arrows off.
Yeah, I'm trying. I think there's a way to just do it in one click, but yeah, okay, so I see the answer. Yeah, okay, so yeah, couple of people already got it. The most obvious way to begin the attack, right? We need to start exposing the white king right on the king side. So f4 is one of the moves, but it might be a bit too slow because, well, I mean e3. Yeah, e3 is the correct move. Yeah, f4 is probably okay, but it allows white to have one move. And that move is going to be d5, right? And then we're gonna eventually play e3 anyway, and then it's gonna cost us the pawn on c6. So it's once again, it becomes unclear. But if we play e3 right now, white cannot wait. White cannot wait for us to take on f2, right? White can't can't allow us to take on f2 because it just loses the game immediately, right? Our knight follows through with knight e4, knight g3, and it's game over. So white has to capture. Now the question is, do we recapture on e3?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah,
It allows white time.
exactly. So once again, if we capture on e3, white gets a couple of moves that they can use to reorganize their pieces and maybe even launch their own counterattack, right? Now, for example, bishop b4, followed by rook b8, d5 is there as well. So yeah, rook e3 is a bit too slow. So you're yeah, okay, queen g3, too good. Queen g3, double explanation mark, because queen g3 forces white into defending, right? Queen takes e3 is a big threat. Queen e3 comes with a double attack against the king and the bishop. And also there is knight e4 threat. Knight e4 also comes with a double attack. What double attack is knight e4? It's attacking the bishop, and also it's helping, yeah, helping queen f2, and knight g3 would be a checkmate if white ignores that. So white's response is pretty much forced. Now knight f3, what would happen if black played knight e4 now? White has a very, very effective defense here. Yeah, bishop e1. Yeah, bishop e1 takes care of everything. Now, this is the time where black knows they screwed up because they have to move back. They're down the pawn. Their attack has gone nowhere. Yeah, everyone in the chat got it as well. So after knight f3, black just took, right? Black took on e3, which once again makes it a double attack. The f3 knight is hanging because the g2 pawn is pinned. The c3 bishop is hanging. So actually, white does not have a way to avoid losing material here, right? Because both of these pieces are hanging, white cannot save both. So white decided to give a check, a probing check, to see if black blunders something. Black did not blunder. They played bishop to e8. Obviously, king h7 would be a blunder because then black loses the bishop on f7. So bishop e8 is one of the good moves. Knight to e8 would also work, but bishop e8 is a bit more precise. And here, after bishop e1, to win material, black obviously have to capture, right? Because if the queen is forced to move away, then there is no talk about winning anything. So black captured on e1, white captured, black captured the knight. Now we have black having two pieces for a rook and the middle game, right? Two pieces for a rook is great news. Plus the white king is as weak as ever. So I guess this is why white knew that they have to try something aggressive, right? If white just doesn't do something active, something aggressive, they're going to lose because black knights are coming in and it's just going to be game over. Black still wins after king h7, probably, but once again, we need to be as objective as possible, and king h7 is, so you're saying that over here, right? King h7 still wins, but I mean, like now we have to worry about queen takes f6, right? Like even if we are winning, you're probably correct because I think you're. Actually, are you? How are we winning here? I see a draw. I don't see a win. I mean, I see knight where actually I don't. Yeah, no, I don't see a win. Yeah, because here at first I thought this is winning, but then I realized that queen h4 is not a checkmate. Right. So this was the only tactic that I saw that might have won for black. But other than that, I mean, I guess we can try like knight h4, which would lose because now white can simplify, right? And this is once again my point that we don't need to go for this because it's too complicated that we don't want to spend our time as we see an easier way to win. So let's go back here. Now white played queen c7, obviously trying to apply as much pressure as possible. So now queen g7 is threatening. Only defense, actually one of the few defenses, is knight to h5, right? Defending and preparing to attack at the same time. Knight at some point is looking to join the attack against the white king by playing knight g3. So white goes rook b8, and while rook b8 is not really, actually, maybe it does have a direct threat. What do you guys think the direct threat is of rook b8? It is obviously not to capture. Yeah, just queen takes c6. Yeah, using the fact that bishop is pinned. Yeah, so the easiest way to combat that is just move the king away from the last rank. So king h7 did happen. Now white played king h2. And this is a good time for black to begin their advance, right? So I guess black decided to trade bishops first. So queen takes f1 happened, rook takes e8. And at this point, nothing has really been threatening to black. So they begin their knight advance, the glorious knight advance. So knight goes to f4. There is only one way to protect white against the checkmate in 1. White takes on c6. And this knight is going to go to f6, trying to get to which square? Why is the knight going backwards? You probably mean e4, but yeah, that's correct. Because right now, the only defender against the checkmate is the queen. So the black knight is just trying to get to e4 to block the only defender. At this point, knight e4 is definitely does the job, but also the move knight e2 does it because knight e2 threatens the mate on g1, which cannot be stopped. Well, I guess white can suffer for a couple extra moves, but in the end, it's still it all the same. So this was my last example, and once again, as we can see, it is pretty much all about piece activity, right? So we give up a pawn, and in the long run, and these examples were, I would say they were rather simple because quote unquote long run was about 4 to 5 moves at most, right? Sometimes it's going to take even longer than that. Sometimes it's going to take, multiple attempts to improve your pieces to regain your material balance and then more, right? But that's the goal. That's what's going to happen if you do it correctly. And this is why I believe materialistic approach is not necessarily the best approach, right? Most people have hard time parting with their pieces, even if they are clearly bad and not very useful. Why not just give them up and make the rest of your army as good as they can be? It's gonna work. More often than not, your opponent will get scared because they're being attacked, and yeah, you're gonna win, as opposed to having one bad piece is probably gonna cost you the game. So this was me and my dynamic sacrifice for long-term advantage lecture. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll see you guys at some point this week. I guess that is it. So yeah, my pleasure. For everyone watching online, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.